It's time for Ask Mike Mondays. Mike answers one listener's question every week. Here's Michael Becker and Paul Peebles.
Welcome to Ask Mike Mondays. I'm your host, Paul Peebles, National Underwriter for Old Capital. And joining me today, as always, Michael Becker.
Hey, Paul.
Michael, who, as you know, owns over 4,000 apartment units, has closed on more than $400 million in real estate, and is over $250 million in non-recourse debt. How do you sleep at night, my friend?
Like a baby.
How does your wife sleep at night?
She's blissfully ignorant. That's good.
So I thought we'd ask Mike a question, and let's kind of figure out what his take on it. Mike, should we ask for bank statements if we're thinking about buying a property? Do you think the seller will turn over bank statements to us? I mean, is that normal that a seller would turn over bank statements to kind of show what the income is of the property?
Yeah.
The expenses?
Really, this is kind of part of maybe a little bit larger conversation, kind of the non-physical due diligence when you're buying a property. What are some of the things that you should get? And as we'll mention at the end of this podcast, certainly if you go to oldcapitalpodcast.com, one of the things you can sign up for there is a sample due diligence checklist. And we've referenced that document on many of the previous podcasts. But on there are things that I ask for when I'm looking to buy a property. And that's kind of the Christmas wish list. You don't necessarily get everything, but one of the things that we always stand firm on is that we want to get in and get copies of their most recent 12 months worth of bank statements and or at least some sort of deposit verification. So really what I'm looking for is if I'm buying a property, I'm making an offer off of unaudited financial statements and rent rolls. So basically I'm just making an offer on what they provided us. So I want to go through and do a basic level audit. So if they say that property has $100,000 in revenue a month, I want to go see their deposits and see, do we have approximately $100,000 in deposits, or are they depositing $80,000? I'm way off. So that's certainly one of the things I do. And the only way to really verify that is to get copies of bank statements or deposit receipts that kind of total up to the revenue they're reporting on a monthly basis. That's one thing. The other thing that we always really try to look at is they're reporting certain utility expenses. So we want to go through and get copies of their utility bills. Make sure if they say that they're having $10,000 a month on electric and $20,000 on water and sewer, I want to go see those bills and try to verify it and match those up, because that's certainly something that should be pretty consistent ownership to ownership. And then you can also use the water sewer bills if you're going to do a water conservation program and try to get in the green rewards lending program, which really helps you on your interest rate and some of the other financing terms with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac both have it. You need those utility bills to help to get in that program and help use your water consultant, like Katie Anderson, who was on a podcast maybe about a year and a half ago. That's what she does. So we get our utility bills, we send to her, and she kind of tells us approximately what the savings we can anticipate going into this deal. So that certainly helps us when we're underwriting the deal. Finally, one of the last things I want to kind of point out that you need to make sure you get is you get copies of all the service contracts. So you really just need to understand, like, what are you going to be required to assume? Some of these contracts, like phone and internet, you can cancel with a 30-day notice, but some of the electric contracts, or if you have a cable or laundry contract, those are things that have to be transferred with the property from owner to owner. So those are certainly things that we all want to get into and make sure we understand.
Can you usually get anything from the seller's insurance company kind of breaks down if anything has happened on the property, whether it's hail or fire?
Yeah, those are called loss runs. So that's certainly something you need to request. So your insurance broker is going to ask you most likely for 5 years of loss runs on the property. So when they're going out and quoting it, they understand what kind of losses were on there so they can get you a more accurate quote. So if this property has a history of being really clean, you get more favorable rates. But if you had a hailstorm that caused a $500,000 roof claim and 2-3 fires on the property, that's going to make your insurance rates go up. So those are very important things when you go in and underwriting, because if depending on who you're buying for, you can either do better or worse on your insurance rates. So if you're a pretty large company like us and we're buying from a mom and pop operator, we have a portfolio insurance policy that allows us to get a little bit more pricing power than a mom and pop. But if we're buying a deal like we currently are from Blackstone, for example, who's like one of the largest apartment owners in the entire world, if not the largest, they have a national portfolio policy. So then that makes it harder, and we're going to have inferior insurance pricing to a company compared to them.
Do you ask for anything to get on the property early, like an access agreement?
And on the physical side of the deal, so anymore now when you're doing these deals more and more often, you're going to have to come in with some hard money pretty much out of the gate. And so some non-refundable earnest money quickly kind of makes me nervous, certainly. And so what we will always want to do is make sure that we got access agreement and we got our diligence information delivered to us. So we get the service contracts, we get the bank statements and utility bills, like I mentioned. as well as we get access to the property to go and walk the units and get on the roof and things like that. So make sure we understand what we're buying before we go hard with earnest money.
Do you guys go hard with earnest money before you take a look at the title work too?
And then typically the contracts, Paul, have you try to get that before you go hard, but typically there's a carve out for title. If they can't deliver the property free and clear, that's an out, and as well as environmental outs on there as well. So usually that's a carve out even within the PSA, the purchase sale agreement, that if you're hard but they can't deliver it or you identify a sizable environmental concern, you can back out, get your earnest money.
Some great information, Mike. Thanks for sharing with us. Anything more that you want to share with us?
Yeah, as I mentioned, if you go to oldcapitalpodcast.com, you can find a form to fill out to ask Mike Monday questions. You can fill in a question you want me to talk about on a future podcast, as well as the multifamily financing white paper on there, kind of the basics of apartment financing. And as I mentioned, that sample due diligence checklist is on there as well. And we also post some events there. One thing we don't talk about, maybe going to Facebook and liking Old Capital and the Old Capital Real Estate Investing Podcast. We have Facebook pages. That's good. And obviously a nice rating and review certainly helps us out in the rankings.
We appreciate it. Thanks very much for listening to Ask Mike Mondays. We appreciate your time. Mike, we appreciate your knowledge. Thanks for working so hard.
Thanks, Paul.
Again, he's Michael Becker. I'm Paul Peebles. Have a great day.